Street child saves baby trapped in car. Millionaire freezes at hospital with shocking secret. The city roared like a beast under the blistering sun. Horns blared, shoes slammed the asphalt, and the heat wavered off every glass window in downtown Chicago. Amid all this chaos, Jaden moved like a shadow, scrappy, sharp-eyed, dodging trash bins and street vendors, as if the whole world was a game he had to survive. His clothes were patched, stained, and smelled of the city itself. But those wary eyes? They held a softness few ever saw. Behind his tough skin was a heart worn thin from years of loneliness, but still beating fiercely. That afternoon felt different, thick and heavy as the heat wrapped around the streets. Then, slicing through the noise, a desperate, frantic scream shattered the air. People kept walking, ignoring it like background noise, but Jaden's stomach clenched tight. He turned sharply toward the sound. There it was, a small, locked car baking in the sun, windows sealed shut like a glass cage. Inside, a baby lay helpless, skin flushed bright red, tiny fists pounding the air in panic. Jaden didn't hesitate. His legs kicked into motion, sprinting through the crowd. The air hit him dense and suffocating. Sweat mixed with grit pricked against his skin. The car's metal shimmered like a furnace, mocking the urgency. With trembling hands, Jaden slammed his fist on the driver's side window, hoping to break the glass without hurting the child. It cracked, sharp, harsh, echoing. Hearts jumped. People stopped, gasped. A woman shouted for help. A man cursed. But Jaden kept hammering, sweat stinging his eyes, breaths ragged, until the glass shattered, shards scattering like confetti in the golden light. He yanked the door open, lunging inside. The baby coughed weakly, eyes wide and raw. Jaden scooped the little one up, feeling the pulse flutter like wildfire through tiny veins. The crowd circled faster now, murmurs building into a storm. Someone called 911. Sirens weren't far behind. Paramedics burst through the gathering, their crisp uniforms a sharp contrast to Jaden's rough edges. Hands reached for the baby with precise care, speaking in quick, clipped tones. Time blurred, hot, sharp, electric. The ambulance tore off, lights flashing like a beacon in the heat haze. Jaden followed on foot, heart slamming against ribs, breath shaking with the aftershocks of adrenaline. He darted inside the hospital, a swirl of noise and cold, sterile light swallowing him whole. And then, still in the sun-soaked parking lot, near the sliding glass doors, a man appeared, tall, statuesque, draped in tailored power and money, Victor Langston. His usual commanding glare cracked. His eyes widened in frozen shock. His mouth parted like he'd swallowed a secret too heavy to speak. No one noticed the flicker of something buried deep in his expression. Something raw, painful, impossible to deny. Beneath the millionaire's polished surface lay a truth jagged and explosive. A secret tangled with the tiny life racing now inside that ambulance. The kind of secret that could shatter everything Victor had built and rewrite the story of both their lives. Jaden stood at the hospital entrance, the doors closing behind the ambulance like a curtain falling on one act and rising on another. His chest tightened with a strange mixture of hope and a gnawing worry. The city buzzed relentlessly outside, unaware, unforgiving, alive. Yet here, under all that heat and noise, a quiet storm was brewing. What was hidden in Victor's frozen gaze? And how would this sudden, impossible connection change them both forever? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I need to give you an important warning. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube removed their subscriptions without notice. Just take a quick look at the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any exclusive content coming up. And since you're here, smash that like button because it really helps me with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Jaden stood there, heart racing, staring at Victor's frozen expression. The world outside the hospital buzzed and whirred, people moving like shadows. But inside that moment, Everything felt like a still frame. Jaden's breath came fast. He felt the pulse of the baby heat. Rescued, still thrumming against his chest. Victor's gaze bore into him, shocked, haunted. Jaden took a step closer, instinctively searching for answers in those sharply cut features. The polished jaw clenched as if it were carved from granite. The flashes of concern in Victor's eyes were troubling. What was he hiding? "I just saved that baby," Jaden managed to say, his voice rising with urgency. "They need to." But Victor's mouth moved, a whisper barely a breath. "My baby." Time cracked right then, like the window Jaden had smashed to save the child. The crowd around him shifted. Some gasped, others murmured in shock. Jaden's heart stopped. The baby was Victor's? The millionaire, with his perfect suits and cold demeanor. This was his child? Before he could grasp it all, the doors swung open and the paramedics sped through, carrying the tiny body on a stretcher. Jaden watched, gut twisting, feeling the weight of the revelation sink like a stone in his stomach. Victor rushed forward, a desperate man now, chasing the medical team, a pitiful shadow of his usual power. "Wait, no, that's my daughter," Victor shouted, voice cracking. Daughter. The words sliced through Jaden like a knife. The baby was a girl. Seized by confusion, Jaden stepped back as Victor frantically pleaded with the paramedics, his cold facade crumbling. This was no longer a simple act of heroism. This was family, history, secrets that lay unspoken, buried beneath layers of wealth and privilege. Jaden tried to make sense of the storm swirling in the air. Wait, what if? A million possibilities raced in his mind. He had just saved a life, but how tangled was this one? Was it possible Victor had been hiding this child? As Jaden hovered close, they locked eyes once more. Victor's expression morphed, shifting from shock to something darker. Anger? Fear? Vulnerability? He sought Jaden, each glance a plea, an accusation wrapped in confusion. "Why were you just standing there?" Victor hissed, stepping dangerously close, eyes sparking with heat. "I was trying to help," Jaden snapped back, fists clenching. "You don't understand. I didn't know. She was—" A loud crash echoed behind them. A gurney toppled over, chaos erupting in the hallway. Nurses yelled, families gasped. The air turned electric with panic. Jaden's instincts kicked in, adrenaline surging again. They both turned toward the source of the commotion. "A code blue," someone shouted. In an instant, the atmosphere shifted. The tension thickened, heavy with dread. "What does that mean?" Jaden asked, eyes darting back to Victor, seeking any sign of what came next. Victor's face paled, the mask of confidence shattering like glass. No, not her. The world twisted again. The once simple act of heroism turned into a nightmare. The baby's life hung in the balance, and with it, everything Victor held dear. Secrets threatened to erupt like a volcano. "Help her." Victor's voice rose, desperation clawing at his throat. Heart pounding, Jaden felt the room close in. Every moment stretched like a tightrope. What if the baby wasn't just a victim of carelessness? What if there was much more to this story? And what did Victor really know? The weight of the moment pressed in on both of them. Jaden held his breath, the room around him fading away. Just him, Victor, and the breaking thread tethering them to their fates. Would they save her? Would this shocking twist unravel everything? "Stay with me," Jaden said softly, not sure whether he was speaking to the baby or the man beside him, both slipping into a nightmare they never saw coming. Heart pounding, Jaden pressed closer to Victor, each breath heavy with anticipation. The world around them spun in chaos. Sirens, shrilling through the air like wailing banshees. The weight of their shared desperation hung thick, wrapping them in an uneasy bond. "Just tell them to help her," Jaden urged, fingers tightening at his side, fighting the growing worry that churned in his gut. Their connection felt electric, but not in a good way. It was raw, volatile, swirling with confusion. Victor barely seemed to hear him. His eyes were locked on the paramedics, desperation etched into every sharp line of his face. Jaden caught a glimpse of the wall he built around himself starting to crumble. In that moment, he noticed a shadow behind Victor, a familiar figure slipping through the crowd. The bustling noise faded into a murmur. Jaden blinked, narrowing his eyes to focus. It was a woman, striking with wild hair and a frenzied look. Clara. His heart sank. She was no friend of Victor's. She was trouble wrapped in leather and fury. "Victor," she shouted, cutting through the din like a knife. "Get back, I told you to stay away." "Clara, this isn't the time." Victor snapped, the crack in his composure widening as he turned toward her. Panic radiated from him, eyes darting from Clara to the men with the stretcher. "Your child is in danger." "You can't!" Clara yelled again, pushing past the gathering crowd, her voice rising with urgency. This wasn't just about the baby anymore. Every word Clara uttered felt like shredded paper, revealing the secrets buried beneath. Pristine surfaces. Jaden's stomach twisted, feeling the ground shift beneath his feet. "What do you mean, stay away?" Victor shot back, fists clenched, eyes flashing with anger and fear. "This is my daughter." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Jaden stood frozen, trying to tether the pieces of this shattered puzzle. Clara's expression morphed into something darker, almost smug. "She's not just your daughter, Victor." She spat, contempt dripping from her words. "She's the reason they found you." "What?" Jaden breathed, the air knocked from his lungs. A twist of confusion and dread knotted inside him. What kind of mess was this? "Your secret's out," Clara hissed, her tone laced with venom. "You think I wouldn't notice the sudden urge to play father? To reclaim the life you abandoned? You didn't deserve that child." Every word hit its mark. Victor staggered, his bravado shattering like glass under a tire. Jaden's heart raced as he watched the change wash over Victor's face, wronged, humiliated, and terrified. Suddenly, a deafening boom echoed through the hospital. The lights flickered, bathing them in dim uncertainty. "Code Red," someone shouted, panic erupting around them. Jaden's blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" he gasped. Panic crawling down his spine. "Bomb threat," a nurse yelled, while rushing past, urgency lighting her features. Victor's eyes widened, shifting from Jaden to Clara, then back again. "This can't be happening," he whispered, fear threading through his voice. Clara's face paled. "They'll blow this place up. We have to evacuate now." The crisis shifted. The baby, the secrets, the chaos. Nothing mattered in the face of imminent danger. Jaden swallowed hard, every nerve on fire with the need to act. "Wait," Jaden exclaimed, grabbing Victor's arm. "What about her? What about your daughter?" For a split second, the chaos dulled, all eyes darting between them. Victor's face hardened, his future splintering. Everything was suddenly at stake. The love for his child. The life he'd built on wealth, it all hung by a fragile thread. "I won't let her die," Victor roared, and with that, he surged forward, pulling Jaden into the storm ahead. "What's your play, Victor?" Jaden shouted, urgency roaring in his ears. They had to navigate this madness together. But how? And what truths lay hidden among the rubble of lies? The hospital trembled around them. The tension cracked in the air. Suddenly, everything they thought they knew felt fragile, hanging by a single thread with no safety net in sight. What would they discover today? Heart pounding, Jaden pressed closer to Victor, each breath heavy with anticipation. The world around them spun in chaos, sirens shrilling through the air like wailing banshees. The weight of their shared desperation hung thick, wrapping them in an uneasy bond. "Just tell them to help her," Jaden urged, fingers tightening at his side, fighting the growing worry that churned in his gut. Their connection felt electric, but not in a good way. It was raw, volatile, swirling with confusion. Victor barely seemed to hear him. His eyes were locked on the paramedics, desperation etched into every sharp line of his face. Jaden caught a glimpse of the wall he built around himself, starting to crumble. In that moment, he noticed the shadow behind Victor, a familiar figure slipping through the crowd. The bustling noise faded into a murmur. Jaden blinked, narrowing his eyes to focus. It was a woman, striking with wild hair and a frenzied look. Clara. His heart sank. She was no friend of Victor's. She was trouble wrapped in leather and fury. "Victor," she shouted, cutting through the din like a knife. "Get back. I told you to stay away." "Clara, this isn't the time," Victor snapped, the crack in his composure widening as he turned toward her. Panic radiated from him, eyes darting from Clara to the men with the stretcher. "Your child is in danger. You can't—" Clara yelled again, pushing past the gathering crowd, her voice rising with urgency. This wasn't just about the baby anymore. Every word Clara uttered felt like shredded paper, revealing the secrets buried beneath pristine surfaces. Jaden's stomach twisted, feeling the ground shift beneath his feet. "What do you mean, stay away?" Victor shot back, fists clenched, eyes flashing with anger and fear. "This is my daughter." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Jaden stood frozen, trying to tether the pieces of this shattered puzzle. Clara's expression morphed into something darker, almost smug. "She's not just your daughter, Victor," she spat, contempt dripping from her words. "She's the reason they found you." "What?" Jaden breathed, the air knocked from his lungs. A twist of confusion and dread knotted inside him. What kind of mess was this? "Your secret's out," Clara hissed, her tone laced with venom. "You think I wouldn't notice the sudden urge to play father, to reclaim the life you abandoned? You didn't deserve that child." Every word hit its mark. Victor staggered, his bravado shattering like glass under a tire. Jaden's heart raced as he watched the change wash over Victor's face, wronged, humiliated, and terrified. Suddenly, a deafening boom echoed through the hospital. The lights flickered, bathing them in dim uncertainty. "Code Red," someone shouted, panic erupting around them. Jaden's blood ran cold. "What does that mean?" he gasped, panic crawling down his spine. "Bomb threat," a nurse yelled, while rushing past, urgency lighting her features. Victor's eyes widened, shifting from Jaden to Clara, then back again. "This can't be happening," he whispered, fear threading through his voice. Clara's face paled. "They'll blow this place up. We have to evacuate now." The crisis shifted. The baby, the secrets, the chaos. Nothing mattered in the face of imminent danger. Jaden swallowed hard, every nerve on fire with the need to act. "Wait!" Jaden exclaimed, grabbing Victor's arm. "What about her? What about your daughter?" For a split second, the chaos dulled, all eyes darting between them. Victor's face hardened, his future splintering. Everything was suddenly at stake. The love for his child, the life he'd built on wealth, it all hung by a fragile thread. "I won't let her die," Victor roared, and with that, he surged forward, pulling Jaden into the storm ahead. As they raced through the hospital, a wailing alarm blared, echoing in their ears, drowning out thoughts of the baby. The building trembled around them. Nurses pushed past, panic-stricken families erupted into shrieks. "Get to the exit," someone yelled, and Jaden could feel the weight of urgency colliding with chaos. But then, a figure appeared at the end of the hall. Tall, cloaked in shadows, a man, his face twisted with intimidation. Victor Langston. The man bellowed, voice booming. "You owe me, you cannot escape your past." Jaden stumbled, feeling disoriented. "What are you talking about?" he shouted back. Victor froze, dread washing over him. "No, not you." The man stepped forward, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "You thought this was over? The baby isn't just your secret. It belongs to me too." The world tilted, Jaden's breath catching. "Him? What do you mean?" he stammered, glancing between Victor and the man. Victor's face crumpled, colors draining. "No, this can't happen here." Sweat slicked Jaden's skin, the truth crashing down like a tidal wave. Connections shattered. Alliances forged in desperation twisted into betrayal. "Your love, Victor, it was all a trap." The man's voice dripped with malice. "You should have stayed away." Jaden's heart hammered in his chest, understanding chilling his bones. The real battle was not just to save the baby. It was for Victor's very life, tangled with the strings of betrayal and revenge. What had Jaden stepped into? And who really was Victor Langston? As the alarms grew louder, echoing like their unraveling lives, the man moved closer. Jaden took a breath, bracing for what was coming next. The man stepped forward, his shadow stretching like a dark omen. Victor's face went pale, like he'd seen a ghost. The words hung in the air, slippery with dread. "Your love, Victor, it was all a trap," the man said, a cruel smile twisting his lips. "You should have stayed away." Jaden's heart raced, confusion battling fear as he tried to piece together the mess before him. "What are you talking about?" he yelled, feeling the urgent need to protect Victor and the baby they were both fighting for. Victor looked torn, panic and pain rolling off him in waves. "No, you can't." The man stepped closer, his visage sharp and unforgiving. "You thought you could hide, didn't you? She belongs to me too." The air in the hallway thickened, wrapping around Jaden like a heavy fog. "What?" he managed to gasp, his mind spinning. What kind of twisted nightmare had he stepped into? Suddenly, Victor broke down, his stoic facade fracturing like glass. "Stay away from my daughter," he shouted, voice cracking with desperation. But then, the man took another step forward, eyes glinting with something dark, a mix of malice and something almost conspiratorial. "You think you're her father, Victor? She's more than you know, and you've played right into my hands." Jaden's stomach twisted, realization dawning like a slow, painful ache. "What do you mean?" he shouted, confusion clawing at him. "This doesn't make any sense." Before anyone could answer, a loud bang echoed through the hospital, rattling windows and making the floor tremble. The lights flickered and dimmed, shadows dancing wildly. "Code red," someone screamed from the end of the hall, the urgency slicing through the chaos. Jaden felt a chill creep up his spine. "What was that?" he hissed, adrenaline flooding his veins. "It's a bomb threat," a nurse screamed, rushing past him, panic painted across her face. Victor's expression turned to one of horror. "We have to leave," he choked out, grabbing Jaden's arm. "Now." The man's cruel smile widened. "You're too late. The truth is already in motion." "Do you want to know who really is waiting for you?" Those words hit Jaden like a brick. "What do you mean? Who?" The man stepped closer to Victor, his voice low and taunting. "It's not just a bomb threat, Victor. You've dug your own grave. I have friends everywhere, just waiting for a signal." And then, as if the world were deaf to the screams of panic around them, Victor turned pale, recognition hitting him like a freight train. "No, you wouldn't." In that instant, an explosion of sound erupted from somewhere deep within the hospital. The walls shook, and Jaden felt the ground lurch beneath him. He gasped, panic coursing through him. This was no ordinary threat. This was deliberate. Victor stood frozen, the horror dawning in his eyes. Clara, who'd been silent until now, screamed, "Run! Get out!" But before Jaden could make sense of the chaos, Victor turned sharply, eyes wild. "They're coming for me, all because of you." "Me? What did I do?" Jaden shouted, voice rising above the clamor. Victor's gaze turned pleading, desperation clawing at his throat. "I thought I could protect you both, but it doesn't matter now." As sirens wailed, outside echoing through the collapsing walls, Jaden felt it. A shattering realization that twisted everything he thought he understood. He was tangled in something much bigger than himself. "Victor, we need to get to the exit," he urged, but fear rooted him where he stood. But then, the truth hit harder than the walls shaking around him. Outside, the response team was not just here to help. Men in uniform swarmed the place with grim determination, holding weapons. "Stop right there," one of them yelled, aiming toward Victor. "What?" Jaden exclaimed, eyes wide. "You're the target, Victor, and the kid, she's the key." And with that statement, the whole world came crashing down. Relationships fracturing, secrets spilling. Maybe, just maybe, everything Jaden believed was a lie. As the armed officers advanced, shadows of betrayal began to darken the hall. Would there be any way out? Would he even want to escape this twisted game? Panic ignited in Jaden's chest, but the last thing he saw was Victor's face, the pure terror etched in it. Was he really the villain? Or was he the unwitting pawn in someone else's game? That question buzzed through Jaden's mind like electricity as he grabbed Victor's wrist. We have to go, now. But what lay ahead? What other secrets were waiting to be uncovered in this labyrinth of chaos? Everything had changed in a heartbeat, and the real danger was only just beginning. Jaden tightened his grip on Victor's wrist, eyes darting between looming threat and the man's shattered expression. The alarms screamed like banshees, each wail tearing through the chaos, and Jaden's heart raced. They had to get out, away from the man who claimed Victor's daughter was the key to some still unknown horror. But the world felt unsteady, spinning out of control. "Run!" Clara shouted again, her voice slicing through the din like a knife. Jaden couldn't tell if she was trying to help or if she had her own motives. The hallway pulsed with fear. Panic was a living thing breathing down his neck. "Where?" Victor gasped, the facade of calm breaking into raw panic. "They'll shoot if we move too fast." "Doesn't matter," Jaden yelled back, pushing Victor's arm. "We find a way out." Then, without warning, the man stepped forward again, an ominous shadow looming over them. "You two think you can escape? Think again. The clock is ticking." What did he mean? Jaden's stomach dropped. And just as he was about to demand an answer, a low rumble echoed down the corridor. Ground shaking. The lights flickered, then dimmed further. "Stay away from us," Clara shouted, desperation letting loose from her lips. "Neither of you know what you're dealing with." Everything blurred. Everyone's eyes widened in unison. Jaden met Victor's gaze, utter disbelief mirrored there. Suddenly, an enormous explosion rattled the walls. Dust and debris rained down as an alarmingly bright light flooded the hallway. Jaden's breath caught. Time froze for a heartbeat. The moment stretched, like a rubber band about to snap. As smoke spiraled through the air, screams erupted and panic ignited like wildfire. Then came a series of rapid gunshots, sharp, deafening cracks that made the hairs on Jaden's neck stand on end. Were they coming for Victor? "What the hell?" Jaden shouted, scanning for any sign of safety. But every path was blocked by chaos. People surged like tides trying to escape. Victor was wild now, eyes darting as he pulled Jaden towards a side exit. "We have to go. They'll kill us if we stay here." But before they could run, the man grinned, a chilling, predatory smile. "You really think it ends like this?" And then, it happened. Staggering reality unveiled itself as he shouted, "You didn't think I'd leave without my prized possession, did you?" In a blink, a figure emerged from the smoke behind him, a girl, small and fragile, wide-eyed and terrified. The baby, the one they raced to save. She was here. Victor's breath hitched, face paling further. "No, no, you can't, she's mine." "Yours?" The man chuckled, a twisted sound laced with mocking joy. "You don't know the half of it, Victor. You're the only one who's been blind." "What? What do you mean?" Jaden felt the world tilt even further. The so-called chaos around them went silent, as if the whole scene sucked in a breath. Everything poised on the edge of revelation. "Your bloodline, it's right here." The man sneered, pointing to the baby. "Did you really think I would let you walk away? She's not just your daughter. She's the key, your key, to my empire. A legacy you thought you could abandon." Jaden stood frozen, shock coursing through him like ice. The truth twisted inside him, threatening to explode. "You're lying." Victor's face twisted in horror. "No, she's my daughter. I will fight for her." But the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. The tension was razor thin. Jaden grabbed Victor's shoulder, shaking him. "There's no time. We need a plan." But the man's laugh cut through them like a knife. "A plan? Or the truth is, this is just the beginning." Then the world erupted again. Something fiery burst in the distance, sending a shockwave that knocked everyone off their feet. Jaden curled around Victor, instincts crashing in like a flood, protect the baby at all costs. But in the chaos, one thought resonated clear. What had Victor really been hiding all along? As smoke filled the air and shadows danced, they were no longer fleeing merely from outside threats. They were running from their own tangled fates, pulled by the strings of a legacy that could unravel everything they'd ever known. "Run," someone near them shouted, sparking a stampede for the emergency exit. Jaden felt Victor's grit slip away as people pushed and shoved, desperate to escape. And just as Jaden spun around to find him, everything went dark. A blinding flash engulfed the hallway, taking with it any sense of safety, leaving jumbled screams echoing in the nothingness. Where was Victor? Where was the baby? Jaden clawed through the shadows, heart racing. Did anyone survive? Did they? Victor, he screamed. No. Was he lost forever in the maelstrom of lies? And who was this man, still mingling in the chaos, smiling as if he had orchestrated it all? A ghostly question lingered in the smoke. What truth lay hidden? And who would emerge unscathed when the dust finally settled? Jaden felt the heat of the moment closing in around him. Darkness cloaked the hallway, nightmarish, spinning wildly and choking any hope. Dust filled the air like fog. Panic surged in his throat as he struggled to process what had just unfolded. Victor. Lost. In chaos, the baby who knew where she was. Victor, Jaden shouted again, swallowing the bile of fear that clawed up his throat. But all he got was silence. The man lingered in the shadows, his smile wide and mocking. Did you really think you could walk away without consequences? He hissed, his voice low and deep, cutting through the growing panic like a knife. You're tangled in a web you don't even understand. Jaden fought against the swirling chaos. But everything felt heavy, suffocating. What do you want? He spat, anger and fear mixing in a potent cocktail. What games are you playing? Games? The man chuckled, dripping with malice. This isn't a game. It's about power, family, a legacy. Yours just happens to be crumbling. Then, with the crack of thunder, the explosion rocked the hospital again, sending debris skittering across the floor. Thick smoke billowed, blocking the way out. The man slowly turned, face hidden within the shadows, but Jaden could feel the glee radiating from him. Panic slapped him across the face. Victor, we have to move, Jaden yelled, but his voice cracked, swallowed by the chaos. Suddenly, a flash lit up the space, illuminating everything, a beacon of unexpected clarity. For a moment, Jaden thought he saw the truth crystallizing in the mist, but what he saw chilled him to the core. There, grabbing the small hand of the baby, was Clara. Clara? She stepped forward, cradling the child, a mix of fierce and sorrowful determination washing over her features. It's going to be okay, little one, she whispered, and Jaden's heart dropped. I'll keep you safe. Words scrambled in Jaden's mind. What are you doing? You can't just... But Clara shot him a burning look. She's not just Victor's child. She's mine too. Shock flooded Jaden, leaving him breathless. What? The word barely escaped his lips. You're lying. This doesn't make sense. But Clara's eyes glittered with a fire he'd never seen. You think you know everything? You don't know Victor's secrets. The secrets that tie us all together like a noose. Victor's face paled, raw fear dancing in his eyes. Clara, it was supposed to be over. Over? She laughed, bitter and cruel. You played with things you didn't understand. You thought you'd walked away from this life. Then came the revelation, a devastating truth vibrating through the air. She's not just a child she carries to take from you, Victor. The baby is the key to everything, the legacy you thought you could abandon. Before Jaden could make sense of the moment, Victor lunged for Clara. You can't take her, he shouted, desperation twisting violently in his chest. But Clara held the baby close, a twisted smile on her lips. I'm not taking her, Victor. I'm saving her from you. The world spun as Jaden struggled to find footing in this new reality. Clara, the one person he thought he could trust, now a wild card in this chaotic mess. Then, with another loud bang, the lights flickered and went dark. Complete silence followed, a suffocating void. I won't let you transform her into that, Victor screamed into the abyss. But before anyone could react, Jaden felt a hand gripping his arm. The man had moved closer, eyes glinting with sick ambition. You're part of this now, kid. The family web binds you tighter. Are you ready for the truth? What truth? Jaden forced the words out, heart racing like a hammer against steel. As the weight of the moment pressed down, everything shifted again. The ground trembled, but this time it wasn't just fear that rattled his bones. It was the dawning realization that everything he believed was a lie, spinning into a web he could no longer untangle. What awaited them in the darkness? What secrets were yet to be uncovered? And how would they all survive the fallout? Jaden felt the weight of despair pressing down on him. Darkness wrapped around them like a thick blanket, and the air smelled of smoke and fear. He could barely breathe as his heart raced. The ground trembled beneath him, and the shadows danced wildly. Clara stood clutching the baby, her fierce gaze never wavering. But the chaos had become unbearable. It felt like they were all trapped in a nightmare with no way out. Suddenly, the man stepped closer, his smile like a noose tightening around Jaden's throat. "You're tangled in a web," he said, his voice smooth yet dripping with malice. "One you won't escape." "What do you want?" Jaden snapped, feeling the panic rising within him. The truth was unraveling, but he needed answers. The stakes were too high. "Want?" The man looked amused, savoring the moment. "I want the chaos to unfold. I want your little hero here to realize just how deep this runs." He gestured toward Victor, whose expression morphed from shock to defiance as Clara held the baby protectively. But then, almost imperceptibly at first, the air shifted. Jaden felt a change in energy, like a current running beneath the chaos. It was a shift so subtle, yet so electrifying. It sent a shiver down his spine. "Enough! You need to understand what you're dealing with," Victor shouted, his voice cracking with urgency. "This isn't just some game." But the man only shrugged, unimpressed. He raised an eyebrow, still taunting. "You still don't get it, do you? The baby's fate rests in your hands." Then, as if summoned by a spell, the lights overhead flickered erratically before plunging them into darkness. The alarms blared louder, drowning out rational thought. It was then Jaden saw it, a flash, brief and blinding, slicing through the dark. All fell silent for a heartbeat. Then the ground shook again, but this time with a hollow sound, like reverberation, deep and ominous. "What's happening?" Jaden gasped, gripping Victor's arm, panic surging in waves. And then it became clear. A mass of people surged into the hallway, their faces a mix of desperation and terror. Jaden squinted, realizing they weren't fleeing from the hospital. They were coming toward the chaos, drawn by some horrific instinct. Amid the frantic throng, a familiar figure emerged. It was Emily, Victor's ex-wife, face pale as she pushed through the crowd, eyes darting wildly. "Victor! Clara!" Her voice pierced the din, and everything stopped for a moment as she reached them. "Emily!" Victor's eyes widened, shock clearly etched on his features. "What are you doing here?" But then Emily's gaze shifted to Jaden, and her eyes filled with recognition. You were supposed to protect them." "Protect who?" Jaden shouted, feeling the weight of confusion crushing him. "Your connection to this," she pointed, voice trembling. "It's all connected. The baby. She's not just Victor's daughter. She's yours, Jaden. Yours through blood that flows deeper than you know." Time shattered. Jaden felt the ground drop from beneath him. Everything he thought he understood twisted into confusion. It wasn't possible. He stumbled back, grappling with the revelation. Victor's face froze, mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air, disbelief flooding his features. "No, this cannot be. You lied to me." His tone was a mixture of accusation and despair, eyes darting between Jaden and Emily. "Lied?" Emily shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes. "I had to. You'd never let me explain. You don't know what's at stake." Jaden felt bile rise in his throat, his heart racing faster than ever. Blood. It pulsed through him and connected him to a legacy he never wanted. The stakes were infinitely higher than he imagined. The situation spiraled into chaos as realization broadened like a dark storm cloud hanging over them, and the man took a step back, watching them like puppets in an agonizing performance. "See the truth now?" he crooned, voice dripping with joy. "You're all connected by a thread that binds tighter than you could ever cut." The walls felt like they were closing in on him, every whispered secret suffocating. Victor's world was crumbling, but their paths had collided in ways Jaden could never have foreseen. What now? The ominous laughter echoed around them, and behind it the sirens wailed, a harbinger of a fate that felt more uncertain than ever. What truth had they stumbled into? How deep did this betrayal run? Before they could answer that question, time fractured again into darkness, and Jaden knew whatever lay ahead would change them all forever. The chaos roared around them, the air thick with acrid smoke, and the distant sound of sirens. Jaden could feel the walls closing in, panic twisting his stomach into knots. It was like trying to run through mud. Emily stood there, her frantic gaze flicking from Victor to Clara, the baby clutched close to her chest. It was a tableau of confusion. "Your daughter is the key to all of it," Emily shouted, voice trembling. "You didn't know. You never knew." Victor's expression morphed into an agonizing mix of denial and fear. "No, she's not mine. She's not ours." But the truth settled like lead inside Jaden. This revelation crashed into him, reshaping everything he thought he understood about himself and this frantic family drama. Outside, the sound of chaos grew louder, a surge of movement pouring into the building. Jaden felt pulled, like a magnet drawn to a place of danger. "Where's the exit?" he yelled, desperate to find a way out. But Clara pushed forward, defiant, shielding the baby from them. "You'll have to go through me," she yelled. "Clara," Victor begged, panic rising in his voice. "We need to get her out, now." Then a loud crash came from deeper in the hospital. It was followed by a scream. "Someone's coming." Jaden's heart raced. "We can't stay here." Then, as if summoned by their desperation, the lights flickered again, throwing long, jagged shadows along the walls, cutting into the tension. A figure emerged, a silhouette, dark against the bright emergency lights. His blood froze, recognition flashing through him. It was Blake, Victor's business partner, the man he'd seen scheming in shadows before. "Victor, we need to talk," Blake shouted, his voice resonating like a war drum. Shifts occurred. The room turned thick with tension. Jaden felt the air grow colder as everyone's focus turned toward Blake. He stepped closer, features drawn tight with fear, as if he were the ghost of a man who knew too much. "Blake, what are you doing here?" Victor sneered, distrust coloring his words. "I came to warn you, damn it. The deal is off. They're coming for her." Blake's eyes darted around, panic breaking apart the bravado. "They want the baby, and they won't stop until they get her." "What do you mean?" Jaden interjected, confusion boiling over. "Who are they?" But before Blake could answer, another explosion rocked the hallway, a thunderous roar that sent debris raining down around them. Jaden instantly shielded Clara and the baby, but the force knocked everyone backward. They stumbled, disoriented as chaos erupted anew. Dust filled the air, making it hard to breathe. Shouts mingled with cries of confusion. Jaden looked frantically for Victor, fear slicing through his heart as he realized the shadows had swallowed him whole. Then came a scream, high and piercing. "Victor!" Jaden shouted, but the sound was lost in the cacophony. And just then, from the haze, a figure emerged, smudged against the orange glow of an emergency light. "Victor!" Jaden shouted again, but it was too late. What he witnessed sent shockwaves through him. Victor, clutching a bleeding arm, half dragged by a mysterious figure. And not just any figure. It was the man, the shadowy figure from before. He'd been playing them all along. "You should have listened," he hissed, pulling Victor closer. In the blink of an eye, everything shifted. Victor's face twisted in betrayal, shock pouring off him in waves. No, it can't be, but the man just laughed, the sound cold and mocking. You thought you could outrun your fate. She's not just yours. She's part of something bigger, a legacy you can't escape. Jaden's heart dropped. What are you talking about? And then another voice chimed in from behind, the last person he wanted to see. Because they're coming for all of us. It was Emily, now standing defiantly, with all her secrets on display. Jaden felt the ground fall away. This isn't just about Victor's daughter anymore. It was about their lives, tangled in a web of lies that kept getting bigger. What did Emily know? What exactly were they up against? The stakes had skyrocketed now, and as dust settled from the explosion, so too did the darkness around them. What fate awaited them all as the truth lurked, just out of reach, growing heavier by the second. Chaos erupted all around them, the echoes of sirens growing louder, smoke swirling like a shroud. Jaden's heart raced as he fought to make sense of the pandemonium, his mind spinning. "We have to get out," he shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. "Victor," he called, searching the faces blending into the haze. The air was thick, stained with fear and uncertainty. Emerging from the shadows, Victor stumbled toward them, blood trickling from a deep gash on his arm, eyes wide with panic. "We're running out of time." Clara held the baby protectively, but the fear in her gaze mirrored Victor's. "They're coming for her, Victor. We can't let them take her." "Who?" Jaden demanded, the urgency rising. "Who wants her?" Blake stepped forward, his voice low and urgent. "Others are closing in. The brothers. If they find out the baby is connected to both of you, none of us will be safe." The truth settled heavily, pinning Jaden down. The baby wasn't just a life to protect. She was a pawn in an unforgiving game. "What's the plan?" Jaden urged, gripping Victor's jacket. Victor's breath hitched. "We have to get her somewhere safe. The old warehouse near the docks. It's the only place I know that they won't look." Suddenly, the building quaked again, shaking the air as debris fell around them. Jaden felt the heat of flames licking at his back. He grabbed Clara's arm. "We need to move, now." With hearts pounding and adrenaline pumping, they charged toward the emergency exit, pushing past a frenzy of terrified bodies. Jaden glanced at Emily, who was now fighting her way through the crowd, eyes wide with resolve. "Stay close," he yelled. As they burst through the exit doors, the chaotic scene outside overwhelmed them. Paramedics rushed by, chaos reigned, sirens screeched their frightful chorus. Jaden looked back, forcing himself to take in the gravity of the moment. They were alive, but that wasn't enough. Their pasts twisted and turned behind them like dark shadows, lurking, waiting. Once they reached the warehouse at the docks, the cacophony of sirens faded into a haunting echo. "What now?" Jaden gasped, awareness settling like a heavy fog. "They'll find us here." Victor nodded, drawing Clara and the baby close to him. "We'll stay low, if we can just lay low until this blows over." His voice trailed off, hope dwindling like a dying ember. Suddenly, Emily stepped forward, determination radiating off her. "You're stronger, together. If we face them, if we show them, we won't back down." "Together?" Clara's voice quivered. "After everything that's happened?" Jaden felt the weight of her words. "We have to stand as one. For her." He glanced at the baby, her tiny face shining in the dim light. They had to protect her from the ugly aftermath of their tangled pasts. "Right," Victor breathed, finally full of conviction. "We find a way to use this, use who we are to shield her from the storm." Jaden felt a flicker of hope igniting in the ashes of despair. "If they come, we stand our ground, together." As the shadows loomed closer, the resolve in the air thickened. They were not just fighting for a baby, but for their fractured family, their shared lives intertwined in ways they had never anticipated. As night fell, Jaden clutched the warmth of the baby close, feeling life pulse with fierce determination. They would face whatever came together. They were stronger, united, and perhaps that was the only way. to turn the tides. At that moment, Jaden saw it clearly. They would emerge from this darkness, scars and all, ready to write a new chapter of their lives. The warehouse door creaked ominously behind them, but Jaden felt no fear. Just the promise of redemption and a future worth fighting for. You have to subscribe right now. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button right now to feed the algorithm. Don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see how this ends. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about the ending. Your engagement makes all the difference. I can't wait to hear from you.